Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to another webinar, FP&A Trends Global Webinar. It's truly global. Today we have almost 500 registrations from 61 countries on 4 continents. And the subject of today's meeting, today's webinar is what are the key success factors for connected and collaborative FP&A. Let me quickly remind you that the main mission of FP&A Trends webinar and our global board, FP&A board, is to share the latest trends and developments in modern financial planning and analysis. A quick reminder about the agenda. So we have a fantastic panel today, and we are going to cover the subject of connected and collaborative planning. What are the key concepts and definitions? We will look at some practical insights of how to create a connected and collaborative planning culture. Also, there will be a case study from Janssen EMEA about a practical experience on analytics and how analytics can help with connected and collaborative planning. And then we will finish with the top 5 success factors, how to create the collaborative planning framework in your company. And of course, conclusions and recommendations, Q&A session, and so on and so forth. It's a good timing now to start to introduce our panel. And before we do this, it's a very international panel. Elena Kristova joining us from Moscow, Stephanie Didier joining us from Paris, and Ray Kubela joining us from Portland in the US, and I'm just outside of London at the moment. So the first participant is Elena Kristova, who is Chief Financial Officer, TUI, Joint Venture Russia and Commonwealth Independent States, and Elena also responsible for the whole Central and Eastern Europe. Elena, we know each other for some time. You were writing the articles for FP&A Trends group. Fantastic insights on rolling forecast and integrated planning. Elena has a wealth of experience from leading organizations, and those organizations, they include Technoserves and Groupon and Thomas Cook and DuPont and GE and so on and so forth. So Elena, I know that you are very passionate about analytical transformation and connected planning and collaboration. And today you're going to share your insights, which is covering the number of different organizations. You're welcome. Welcome to FP&A Trends webinar, Elena.
Thank you very much, Larissa. Hello, everyone. Happy to be with you today.
Thank you, Elena. Now this is time to introduce our second panelist, Stephanie Didier, who is Senior Director Finance and Treasury at Janssen EMEA. And Stephanie is leading the project, Analytical Transformation Project for EMEA region. And also she's working at Treasury at the moment. And you know how Treasury and FP&A are connected. Stephanie is a member of our Paris FP&A board, where she presented the case studies, and she presented at the previous FP&A board Connect sessions as well, the digital ones. And today, Stephanie is going to talk about, she will share with us the practical case study from her organization on a predictive, prescriptive, analytical transformation, and also using artificial intelligence, machine learning, and how it supports collaborative planning and integrated planning as well. You're welcome, Stephanie.
Thanks, Larissa. Very happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Let me go to the third panelist, and we have Ray Kubela here, who is Global Head of Finance Solutions at Anaplan. Ray is a former practitioner and is thought leader at Anaplan. I know that you joined Anaplan only in August, and a wealth of experience from practical implementation of collaborative system in your previous organization. So you had this analytical role at Unum Group, where you practically developed the framework of collaborated and connected planning. Ray is very passionate about technology and what it can bring to FP&A, and his today's presentation is about the key success factors for collaborative and integrated connected FP&A. You're welcome, Ray.
Larissa, thank you. I'm glad to be here and excited to be a part of this panel.
Thank you so much. And before we start, I would like to say thank you so much to our global partner and technology sponsor, Anaplan, the company that driving a new age of connected planning, and a company that helping to connect and integrate different planning systems and processes and people. Just a few words about FP&A Trends Group and about our international FP&A board project. As I already mentioned to you, we're already in 27 cities in 16 countries on 4 continents. Because of the situation with travel, we continue to travel digitally. Though we already had face-to-face meeting on the 22nd of September in Copenhagen, and hope to meet with many of you in the second half of next year. We are planning face-to-face meetings. So about the webinar now. So it will be 1-hour webinar. Your participation is so important for us. So we will have 2 polling questions. Please vote. It's so easy to do with this system. We will have a very interactive Q&A session at the end, but it would be the subject of the time. Please use the text, the chat box in order to send your questions. You can start as quickly as the first presenter starts presentations. And even if we don't have enough time to answer the questions, we will do this after the meeting. We will send you the answers. And networking is so important for us. So we welcome you to connect with everyone who is at this webinar at the moment. So with our panelists and with myself, it would be wonderful. And at the end of the meeting, please remember about the survey. We would like to hear how we've done with this webinar, what we can do better. I would like to start with a very, very quick definition. We had meetings about integrated or connected FP&A in many countries around the globe. And what I would like to say that please don't mix it with the subject of IBP, integrated business planning, because it's much bigger than this. Integrated FP&A is really going beyond of just finance function. And it's integrating, it's not only integration through the platform, but it's integration through many other aspects, such as data and driver-based models. And one collaborative platform is important, but it's about automation of routine, advanced analytics, and of course, people aspect of this. And here I just consolidated for you the 7 facets of today's meeting. We are going to look at integrated FP&A subject, at connected FP&A subject from these 7 different facets, 7 different points of view. And of course, collaboration, this is the result of integration. So now about the definitions. This is a quick definition from International FP&A Board, the way how we see it. So it's all about harmonizing our 3 key planning processes in organizations, starting from strategic planning, going to business planning, and operational planning. So this is vertical integration, and it's all about our top-down and bottom-up processes. And how we can harmonize it, we're about to find out. And of course, it's about horizontal integration as well, integrating of all your processes as a one single process. So this is our definition, and it goes so much beyond just system. And we're going to look at all of those aspects now. Elena Kiristova, Chief Financial Officer at TUI Joint Venture Russia. Elena, the floor is yours, and we are welcoming you to present on how to create connected and collaborative planning culture. Your practical insights that are coming from your very rich experience of working with a number of leading organizations. You're welcome, Elena. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Larissa. Again, hello, everybody. Happy to be with you and give you some examples from my companies which I was working for. So basically, my subject is about innovation, automation, and role of technology mainly. Currently, we are saying that digital innovation and automation go together. This is a new normality of our life, and nobody of us can expect the return to pre-COVID style. Just imagine early on, we were all sitting together in one office, and it was quick enough just to stop by to see your colleague, to discuss all necessary issues and topics. But now we are sitting at homes, still having our targets in place and still need to maintain our processes. For finance, this is really the time to start to be digital and not paper driven, to concentrate our attention on those topics which add value to the business and just stop to be just bookkeepers. To put this into perspective, FP&A starts to lead overall finance function with strategic, operational, financial planning. FP&A is now really beyond finance, as Larissa said. We can add value to sales and marketing, to supply chain, HR, as analysis starts to play a key role in the success of the organizations. On the top, we need to be extremely quick. All scenarios have to be played quicker and quicker. Budgets, which were approved 2 months ago, are already outdated. We face the time where speed needs to be balanced with the granularity of forecasted details. And the prerequisite of all of this is to migrate from outdated tools to the modern, best-in-class solutions. Let's go to the next slide to see an example of IT architecture. This is one example, a bit simplified from my previous companies. We organized one all-up cube with interconnected systems across the company. With the embedded there different predictive analytical models, including all 3 dimensions like P&L, cash flow, and balance sheet. We also embedded predictive models and algorithms into the system, which allowed us, upon month-end closing, just to push the button and get the forecast. On the top, budgeting exercise became just an additional forecasting exercise, not taking more time and efforts than a standard forecast. This means that all company systems, starting from A to Z, from CRM to business intelligence tools, which are now all connected and contain consistent data. This made the processes so easy to handling them, to starting from target setting to the analysis of forward-looking scenarios. In order to reach such level of automation, we had to integrate all our processes, which dramatically increased the requirements for data management. Since in case you have a lot of inconsistent, exceptional items, one-offs, whatever, you would not have a consistent scenario as an outcome. Our mega project for us also eliminated a lot of routine from day-to-day life, freeing up the resources for value-added activities like collaboration with our internal customers, sales and marketing, product, distribution, HR, whatever. But we are moving not just a consolidated cube, we are moving to the modern tools like Anaplan, but here are the others as well. Let's go to the next slide to see how the new FP&A architecture helps us drive the capabilities of FP&A partners of the business. I will probably repeat myself, but it's difficult to overestimate the importance of single online system. Embedded driver-based models are now can be run much quicker and in much more detailed way than it was ever in the past. Self-service system and models allow us to have online access for all management, and this eliminates any dispute or discussion whose data is more relevant. You know, all these Excel to Excel comparisons are now in the past. Routine operations are now given to the machine, and FP&A people are doing the other level of the job, playing scenarios, doing the right forecasts at the right time, with the right level of details, helping calculate return on investments, making hypotheses together with business people, and so on and so forth. Now we can be proud that we came to the culture of collaborative and integrated planning. Let's go to the next slide to see the recommendations and outcomes from our project. First recommendation for each company would be to have one single data space on one self-service collaborative platform. Again, our platform contains all three way models like P&L, cash flow, and balance sheet, which is very important. This is possible upon alignment of internal business processes and getting buy-in of key stakeholders of the company like commerce, distribution, marketing. Consistent information flows are now only the standard for us based on the consistent data. Therefore, we pay full respect to the increased data management requirements. And at the end, let me give you my own example. I moved to tourism industry from January 2020, when nobody could even say that the borders will be closed in 2 months' time, when people were traveling across the globe every month, when we were together with each other every day. In 2 months, all aircrafts landed, borders were closed, we all were locked down at homes. But I was lucky enough. I joined the company which was genuinely prepared for remote work, implemented digital solutions like I described before. And we were able not to lose the connection, communication, and remained very efficient even in such unusual time. So basically, this is all from my side. Larissa?
Elena, thank you so much for your practical insights. And this is the timing now to ask your colleagues to comment on this. Stephanie, as you can see, Elena covered important subjects of integrated data, cascaded driver-based models, one collaborative platform, but also the aspect of FP&A architecture. What would be your key insights, what you can build up on the top of this from your experience?
Yeah, thanks, Elena. Fantastic presentation. And there are two things that especially resonated with me. The first one you mentioned is how critical it is to have integrated data and to have one source of truth. Because I feel in my organization, for example, we still spend a lot of time trying to reconcile the different source of information. And that's really nice to see that you managed to get to one source of data. And my second insight, and what I really liked in your presentation as well, is that you are managing the financials in a very comprehensive way. So you talked about P&L, you talked about balance sheet, and you talked about cash flow, where I noticed many organizations have a tendency to focus first on P&L and not so much or at a later stage on balance sheet and cash flow. And I really believe as FP&A practitioners, it's important to give the same importance to the three financial. So thanks a lot, Elena.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Thank you so much for reminder. Thank you so much for reminder about integration of three accounting statements, finance statements as well. I would like to ask Ray to comment on this as well.
Yeah, Elena, thank you so much for sharing your practical experience. From my perspective, what I really loved about the story and experience that you shared is that you didn't take a lift and shift mentality in regards to just moving old process and data structure to a new technology. You did the really hard work, which is necessary, and we sometimes underestimate on rethinking the data architecture to really centralize the new technology that you're bringing in to fully enable a new process and a new way to work. And so I think that was, I can see how it was so critical to your success to have that single source of truth, so that in itself fosters that collaboration. Because once people feel great about the data and there's no negotiation of the data, you can really then propel forward. And so I love that about your story.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you so much, Ray, and thank you, Elena. I think it's a good timing for us to hear from our audience. I would like to open the polling question, the first one, and I would like to ask you to start voting as soon as you see it. And it's all about how you can generate your insights today, whether you deploy whether you can make it instant decisions and deploy as the result of real-time insights, or whether you are not there yet. So I would like to ask you to vote. Please, can you choose one of those options that is the best description? So the first one is yes, we're already there, or no, we are restricted to look, and we're looking at multiple sources of data. Or maybe you think that it's an unrealistic reality at the moment. So please, if you can continue to vote, I can see that more than 60% of you voted. Just a few seconds, please continue to vote. And I'm closing the poll and I'm sharing the results with everyone. So as you can see, 13% of you already really at this instant decision-making process that, and you can generate your decisions based on the real-time collaboration and real-time insights. It's a great result. But 81% of you are restricted to, and you're looking at multiple sources, and it's so much consistent with what we see around the globe at FP&A board meetings, but also through our survey. And 6 of you think that it's absolutely unrealistic reality. So what would be your commentary, Elena?
Well, basically, I guess that those ones who are counted in 81% and thinking that they are restricted to look for multiple sources of data, this already a challenge. And from my standpoint, you need to get the buy-in from senior stakeholders of the company and go to the next level to connect, to integrate all systems in one single data room, to be able to make something similar what I described in my presentations. Since this makes the life so easy for FP&A, not that easy in terms of predictive and prescriptive analysis, definitely not that easy from hypothesis making, but easy from data handling.
Thank you. Great insights, Elena, and so much in line with what we observe around the globe. The data quality is one of the biggest barriers at the moment. I'm hiding the results, and we are going to the next presentation right now. So, Janssen EMEA practical case study on connected and collaborative planning, and Stephanie Didier, Senior Director, Finance and Treasury at Janssen EMEA. Stephanie, the stage is yours. You're welcome.
Thank you, Larissa. Very happy to be here. Yeah, and I wanted to start with that slide. I'm sure you've seen, like me, these results multiple times. But I have to say, I'm still frustrated to see that finance is only spending 19% of their time on insight generation, and even less, only 6% on driving actions. And what makes me even more frustrated is these results are not changing over time. And moving to the next slide, I have to say that a couple of years ago, the statement and the outcome was the same in my organization. We are spending more than 52 weeks on planning. So you can wonder, how come you spend more than a year on planning? That means concretely, we were some weeks finalizing a business plan and starting another update. And looking at the sales forecasting outcome, we were 92% accurate. When you think about the amount of effort and resources put behind, I consider this is a pretty low result in terms of forecast accuracy. But I have good news, because what I'm going to share with you in the next couple of slides is how we managed to turn around these numbers. So the lever for us, when we saw this statistic, was to go to connected planning and predictive forecasting. We wanted to be very serious about it, and that's why we dedicated specific resources in the project of predictive forecasting and hired one data scientist externally. What the team did, supported by the data scientist, was to develop internal model So we made the choice not to go for ready-to-use models, but develop our internal ones. And we leverage what other regions had already developed. And we also leverage the historical information we had in our system. The third important information or realization during that project is that we have a lot of systems in our organization. And actually, the team is spending a huge amount of time reconciling the different information from the different systems. And that's why, Yelena's presentation really resonated with me, because I think that's a waste of time for the team in finance, and their time would be used more efficiently doing something else. So the outcome of our predictive forecasting project was to have a monthly forecast for the next 18 months at the individual brand level and for each country, because that's how we look at our business. And on the next slide, I'm extremely proud to share the outcome of that project. So you remember, we had 92% accuracy in the old way of doing forecasting. And going directly at the bottom of the slide in green, you see that the sales forecast using the machine learning is 99%. So almost 100% accurate. So that's that's great results, and I'm very proud about it. When you move to the next slide, we also leveraged that opportunity and that project to enhance our collaborative FP&A capabilities. So with the time that was freed up in the finance team, it allowed us to spend more time on value-adding activities. And I can't judge exactly how much time we saved, but I could say probably between 10 or 20%. But what is even more important for me is when I see my team attending business meetings, when the year before they couldn't and they had to decline because they were doing business planning. So that's really a testimony that now their time is spent much more with the business. What's important as well in a predictive forecasting and collaborative planning is we managed to get more real-time data. And I'm sure we've all been in that situation when you submit a business plan and you already know that your data is outdated and you have more real data, but you can't use them because it's just too late. And especially in the current situation, uncertain with COVID, that's even more important to go closer to real-time FP&A. And as I mentioned, we have 18-month forecast. So that's a pretty long period to be able to influence and make decisions. And what's important is once you have this robust predictive forecasting, remember almost 100% accurate, then you can start using this forecast to do scenario planning. So for example, what if you launch a new product earlier? What if a new competitor happens into the market? And then that's becoming a real collaborative tool to drive decision. If you can move to the next slide. So what I want to conclude on is it's a journey, definitely. And I'm not going to tell you it was a journey easy every day, but the learning from this journey so far is change management is critical. And you see it mentioned 3 times on that slide, because that's change management towards our team. That's a new way of working. Change management towards our business partners. They need to be comfortable with the forecast coming from the machine. And change management for us finance leaders, because that's our responsibility to lead our teams through the change. The second learning, which was critical as well, was to make sure that you have in the organization people who can make the bridge between technical language and business language to explain concepts to finance people and business people, so we can get comfortable with the data coming out of the machine. And the last learning is really to test new things, learn from what you are doing, learn from mistake, and adapt if need be. And when something works fine, expand to new countries, new region, new products. And the message I want to leave you with is, I wouldn't have bet probably 2 years ago that we would be here. So that's possible. That's a message of hope and very positive message. And I'm extremely excited about what's ahead of us as a finance organization. And I'm really convinced that finance will continue to play a critical role and drive business decisions. So with that, I hand it over to you, Larissa.
Stephanie, thank you so much for sharing your practical case study with us. I'm talking to some of people here in the UK as well, representatives of your organization. I know that your company is doing really well at this aspect, and obviously it's a journey for you, but you could be really proud of the results. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. We looked at the fourth and fifth aspect of integrated or connected FP&A process, about automated routine, predictive, prescriptive analytics, even using artificial intelligence, machine learning for this. I would like to ask you, Elena, to comment on this. What is your experience? What would you like to add?
Well, basically, great presentation, Stephanie. I'm happy to see tremendous success of forecast accuracy increase as a result of automation and models implementation. Really impressed by the result of 99 accuracy reached by your team. Built on this, you also mentioned continuous improvement as a journey for all of us. You developed the models, learned from the other regions, and I guess standardized ways of doing these things. Again, my assumption would be that the way forward here would be think globally, act locally, but not underestimating change management, which is also must have in every company, in every organization.
Absolutely, great comment, Elena.
Thank you so much, Elena. Great insights. Now I would like to ask Ray to give your key points on this presentation, your practical experience, Ray.
Yes, thank you, Stephanie. Fantastic accomplishment. You know, they're lucky to have you and your leadership to kind of drive them to that result. The thing that I would like to add, you know, that really resonated with me as part of your presentation is how you really focused on change management. And what I heard kind of in between, you know, the lines there that you described was really kind of a change for how do you upskill the talent on your team, right? And so, you know, that requires not only a new mindset of how do I add value, when I was the one really providing value by gathering the right data, cleansing that data, but now the value is how do I take the outcome of that to then proactively apply that into the business setting to drive a decision. And so that's a new skill, and I think sometimes, you know, we might underestimate the time that's needed to really upskill our teams as they go through this change to not only think differently, but give them the right tools to apply kind of the new outcomes that they're generating through this process, like with predictive insights.
Fully agree. That's a critical aspect. Fully agree with you.
Thank you so much, Ray. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Now this is the good time to hear from our audience. And this is the time for the second polling question. So I'm about to launch the second polling question. And it will be about how you use predictive and prescriptive analytics to facilitate your decision-making process at the moment. Please, can you start voting? Do you use predictive prescriptive analytics to facilitate the decision-making process? And select one of those, yes, no, or maybe you don't believe there is a benefit and you trust human intelligence more than artificial intelligence or machine intelligence. So please, if you can continue to vote. I can see that almost 60% of you voted now, just a few seconds. Please continue to vote, and I'm closing the poll. and I'm sharing the results with everyone. So as you can see, 38% of you already using predictive and prescriptive analytics to facilitate decision-making process. Great result, but 60% no, not yet. And 2% of you don't believe in the benefit and you trust the traditional method and trust human decisions. Stephanie, what would be your quick commentary on this?
Yeah, I have to say I'm positively surprised that almost 40%, of the attendees use predictive analytics. So that's for me already a great start. And I think my piece of advice, last one, would be you can start small. So don't start with a big scale, but start small, and you will see the benefit.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I would like to ask Ray to give your quick commentary as well. Are there any surprises for you, or is it something that you're observing at the moment as a trend?
No, I actually agree with Stephanie's surprise in regards to, I'm pleasantly surprised that that more of the audience has actually started on this predictive analytics journey. I tend to see FP&A leaders sometimes be overly cautious or resistant into moving in this direction, being overwhelmed either by the data that might be required to leverage and build a predictive analytics engine, or the skills that are needed within the enterprise to do it. And so this is actually a fantastic result, and congratulations to the attendees here today who have started on this journey.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ray. Thank you, Stephanie. I'm hiding the results now, and we continue our journey today. And this is the last session now, which will be more about the human aspect and the cultural aspect, but also give an aspect of all of those top five key success factors that important in order to achieve greater collaboration and a greater integration, connectivity. Ray Kurbella, Global Head of Finance Solutions at Anaplan. Ray, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Larissa. I recently joined Anaplan as an FP&A practitioner, and I spent the last 10 years in the financial services industry, actually leading FP&A organizations. So, my presentation today is really geared towards, me as a practitioner and the experience that I had within the organization, actually driving the organization towards greater collaborative planning, as you heard both from Stephanie and Elena. So during my time at Unum Group, as you heard Larissa describe, we were beginning to see that change is constant, very similar to what we're all experiencing today. The only thing we know for sure is change will continue to happen, and so we do have to embrace it. And businesses continue to find new ways to be more digital, and that digitization actually really is what's driving a lot of this opportunity to be collaborative to drive greater business value. But we had a vision when I was at Unum Group to find a better way to focus on collaboration from the development of strategy all the way through the execution of that strategy and monitoring the financial outcomes. So I would love to kind of show you that story. So if we go to the next slide, when I took the leadership role at Unum, we had recently brought in a new CFO of the entire organization, and I was really excited and eager, to share my insight as I was starting finalizing the delivery of our first plan process for the next year to that CFO. And I had prepared, multiple days for it, so me and my team to hopefully, impress the new CFO and provide him the guidance as we enter into the new year. And I remember quite vividly sitting across the table from him, handing him the financial plan for the following year. And he didn't even open the deck and looked at me and said, Ray, this material is outdated. And I was shocked, and I honestly didn't know what to say at that point. And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, this is 2.5 months old. What's happened in the last 2.5 months is, additional insight has been gained by our sales force. New trends are starting to emerge, and we're seeing changes in our operations based on actions that we've been taking. This plan can't be relevant anymore if it took you guys 2.5 months to produce it. And I couldn't be, I couldn't agree with him more. And so, I walked away from that meeting knowing that I had to do something about it to drive greater efficiency and collaboration so that we can drive greater value to the CFO in a reasonable amount of time. And so I pulled together a task force to begin to understand kind of the key elements of our problem. And what I found was, 10 to 20% of, we were only leveraging 10 to 20% of the data that we had in our finance organization, let alone the data that we had out in the operations. And so we were realizing that the abundance of data was increasing, but we weren't leveraging it to the best of our ability. Let alone that we, very similar to the story you heard from Stephanie is, my team was spending 70 to 90% of their time just gathering the data and reconciling the data across systems. And Elena spoke about what that reconciliation can look like and how cumbersome that can be, instead of running the scenarios and stress testing the plan and understanding our options. And even more importantly, in today's world, it's not just about, producing a number in a silo. We were not even engaging our partners, more than one time throughout the process, usually at the beginning or at the end. And so making sure that we were bringing in the right leadership, the right subject matter experts to help engage in our process was critical. And so if we go into the next slide, I wanted, what we saw ahead of us and what we wanted to craft, and I believe one slide before this, I apologize. What we saw ahead of us was that we needed a technology to be an enabler. We were living in a world where we had 37 Excel models and 7 different databases that wasn't allowing us to be efficient. And so we knew we had to take a very proactive approach to think about the right architecture. And we actually knew that we wanted to allow and enable intelligent forecasting to do some of the work for us so that we can add and rethink kind of the value that we were driving as a team versus doing the data gathering and running the math to actually applying the outcomes of those of our financial plans towards business action. And so we wanted to ensure kind of the strategic execution of certain things that were actually happening in the business, and we weren't reflecting those effectively in our plans either, let alone driving the culture that we needed to actually drive a more collaborative process and a more effective and efficient process. And so if we go to the next slide, what we actually did was we noticed that the culture was the center and the focus of what we had to do as we move forward. And so, the task force and I, along with key partners that we identified across not only finance, but IT and the operations and our sales force, we got into, 3 months of working sessions to actually design our future financial planning process for just phase 1. And we spent that time, doing very similar things that you heard from Elena and Stephanie. Is we first started with the data architecture. What was it going to take to align our data and leverage the data that we needed to, and why was that data the right data we wanted to go after? We wanted to then spend the right time understanding what were the models we needed, predictive models, drivers-based models, and what were the outcomes we were looking for those to generate. And that was helping us build a broader connectivity from edge to edge that we wanted to be able to provide ourselves. But then even more importantly, we had to think about the process we were wrapping around that. And so how did we want to engage our business partners throughout the process so that we were thinking more from a progress over perfection, right? We, you know, as FP&A practitioners, we sometimes pride ourselves in developing the right number, the final answer, but really the answer is an iterative approach. And so taking that iterative approach was important to us. So rethinking how we engaged our partners throughout that process was critical. And ultimately, you know, driving the transparency, because, you know, we couldn't allow collaboration without having transparent data, access to the system, and access to an understanding of the risks that we were incorporating within our financial plans as well. And all of that really helped us build the readiness that we needed to move forward into the future and tackle the low interest rate environment at the time, and tax reform, and so many other economic factors, and now today, COVID. And so it was really critical for us to really think about this holistically, to take on this, what was ended up being a 3 to 4 year journey for the team to actually arrive at this collaborative planning achievement, where we actually took that 2.5 months of generating the plan to it only taking 2 weeks to produce the plan. And then we were actually spending another 2 weeks analyzing it, stress testing it, and doing additional scenarios on top of that. So we were delivering a plan within a month's time that we felt confident about driving critical, you know, business activity for the CFO and our business leaders. So Larissa, I'll stop there to gain additional comments from the other panelists.
Thank you, Ray, for sharing your knowledge with us. Good timing to ask our panelists to build up on this knowledge. Elena, what would be your quick 30 seconds commentary on this?
All right, Ray, this great presentation. I appreciate you described success factors like ways of working, finding the balance between the depth and the progress. Data which can be really the obstacle on our journey, or the data which can be the biggest helper for us to come up with the business decisions. I also appreciate you mentioned people mindset aspect to partner with each other. I think this is the crucial point for each company to come up with collaborative partnering atmosphere with analytics used for decision making. And this is actually the basement for the future success. This is all about culture of collaboration and partnering.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you so much. And Stephanie, what would be your key points on this presentation?
My key point you mentioned several times, Ray, is about iterative planning. And that can be frightening at the beginning, moving from one big event once a year to sounding like you plan all the time, but actually that's not the case. And that's much more efficient, you get much more comfort, and you can drive a decision, as you mentioned. That sounds really fantastic.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Ray. And before we're moving on, and before Q&A session that will start in a moment, I would like to ask all our panelists to give their very quick key takeaways regarding this session. What you would like our participants to remember. Elena, you starting first, your 30 seconds key takeaways, please, from your session.
Thank you, Larissa. Well, I would mention importance of single service system, which gives an online access for us, for all of us, and to have all the same data set. Crucial importance of collaboration and partnering between functions to maintain clear and clean data and processes.
Thank you so much, Elena. And Stephanie, what would be your 30 seconds key takeaways?
My key takeaway is technology is critical. That's an enabler, but that's only a starting point. So people are core, to the change we want to make as a finance function.
Excellent reminder. Thank you. And Ray, what would be your key points for people to remember?
Yeah, thank you. For me, it's really centered around not underestimating the need for change management and driving a new culture. Um, we can plan all day, we can design all day, but at the end of the day, the people who deliver the value across all of our businesses are the people who work for it. And so ensuring that we bring them along, we integrate them in the process, and we're upskilling them in an effective way to drive that collaboration is really what's going to drive our success. But lastly, you heard from Elena and Stephanie, both in their experiences, that this is FP&A, and there's a P in FP&A for a reason. And so we have to plan for this approach, and it is a journey, and it takes time to get there.
Thank you so much to all our panelists, and I would like to ask you to stay because we are starting our Q&A session, and we already have a number of questions from people. Please continue to send your questions via chat box. Please remember that even if we don't have enough time to answer in real time, we will do this in offline regime. So the first question is to you, Elena. It's amazing how many systems are covered in your process. What is the level of complexity of the business? For example, volume, product, customer segment you covered during this architecture that you described?
Well, actually, the complexity of the business, I would say, is quite big already. It's roughly $2 billion, and it covers several countries. It covers multiple sectors of how we approach the customers, online, offline, etc. And it covers actually multiple divisions which we involve into FP&A. So this means that standardized way is all possible. However, you need to have the basics which we were talking about.
Thank you, Elena. And a very quick question, the second part. Is the new FP&A process was utilizing cloud capabilities for FP&A?
Yes. The solution which we use right now is cloud-based.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Stephanie, the next question is to you. Also two questions. So the first one is, can you provide top 3 lessons that you learned through this journey? And the second one, how long did it take you to implement the solution, the infrastructure that you described here?
Yeah, so the top 3, I would say, is get more familiar with the technology. Don't become an expert, but be comfortable with it. That's the first one. The second one is get your business partners on board, because if they don't believe in the numbers, you will never be able to have a meaningful conversation with them. And the third one is also use the technology and get some ambassadors even within your finance team, so they can educate and take on board the rest of the team. So that's my 3 top lessons, I would say, from the journey. And on the second question, similar to what we mentioned in a different context, it was an iterative process. So we tested some algorithm, tested some tools, and it took a bit of time to find the one that was the best one, and also to clean our data. So that's an important aspect as well when you use predictive forecasting. So I would say we had the first results probably in a couple of months, 3-4 months, but to really use it as a tool in finance, I would say probably between 18 months to 2 years to be very comfortable with the information.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. The next question is to you, Ray. Very interesting question that will utilize your both worlds as a former practitioner and now as an Anaplan. So the question is the following. We have been able to significantly shorten our quarterly forecast update, to deliver updates to our CFO practically in real time. However, we still receive a lot of pushback from our business partners on our shortened time. Do you have any recommendations on how we can ensure that we're all on the same page and convince them that they do not need to wait for current month's actuals and forecast the future months? What would be your recommendation on this?
Yeah, no, that is a fantastic question, and it's actually the perfect timing in regards to what we're living in today, right? Because what we have realized, and probably what this attendee is getting to is, leveraging historical data has almost been impossible now in COVID, because history is not going to help us navigate into the future with COVID. We have to rethink not only the art of the possible, but how we run our businesses moving forward, what's more important, and taking those risks and trade-offs. And so I think it's important to spend the time in that change management process, helping your customers understand where the uneasiness is. And when I say customers, being your business partners, because as finance, we usually serve the business, and help them kind of bridge the gap of how do we leverage additional data, periphery adjacent data, to help us forecast into the future. So that could be economic data, that can be third-party data, or candidly data that you're already collecting internally that isn't necessarily historically based, but that you're gathering in real time to help influence what the future might look like. So it's a great accomplishment to actually, almost produce plans in real time, but making sure that you're spending the time and having those conversations to really get underneath of the root cause there of what's giving them the discomfort, to then hopefully bridge them towards something forward-looking.
Thank you so much, Ray. Thank you to everyone. Because of the time issues, because of the time framework, I would like to close the Q&A session right now. But please continue to send your questions in chat box, because as I said, we will do our homework and we will get back to you. We will distribute the questions between our panelists. So let me remind you about our upcoming FP&A Trends webinars. We will continue our journey. We will go deeper into the subject of the power of driver-based and predictive FP&A. We will start to talk about how to close the strategy gap and what is the role of FP&A in strategic planning. And there will be a lot of other webinars. Please stay with us. But before we close today's meeting, we really would like to say thank you so much to our panelists today. So fantastic international panel. Thank you, Elena. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Ray, for sharing your fantastic experience with us. Very valuable insights. I would like to say thank you so much to all of you for being with us today. Thank you for your questions, for your votes. Thank you for being so passionate and so interested in the latest trends and developments in FP&A. And finally, I would like to say thank you so much to our fantastic partner and our sponsor, Anaplan. Thank you for supporting us, supporting our thought leadership. Before closing the webinar, I would like to remind you that please stay, because when we close the webinar, you will have opportunity. You will have opportunity to do the survey and to share with us how we can do better. Thank you so much. Let us stay together. Let us move FP&A to the next level. Please remember that we are doing a research project for using artificial intelligence, machine learning for FP&A. Any case studies, any insights, any thought leadership, please connect with us, and we would be happy to talk with you and to share your experience with the global audience. Thank you. Stay safe and all the best. Bye-bye.